right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the Malzberg panel. Jessica Tarlov, Democratic political consultant, political strategist at Douglas Schoen, LLC, and Ford O'Connell, Republican strategist, political analyst, author of Hail Mary, the 10-Step Playbook for Republican Recovery. Thank you both for being here. So Hillary Clinton's first sit-down interview since announcing Breonna Keeler of CNN, it just aired, and some of the tidbits I'm picking up is that she is blamed, basically, get this, for the vast right-wing conspiracy, without saying it in so many words, for the fact that the people aren't trusting her as much, although she said people do trust her. Forget the polls that show they don't. She says when she meets people, and I guess she's met, as Bill Kristol said, at least 2 or 3, they tell her they trust her. Isn't that lovely?
Well, this is the go-to play in the Clinton playbook, attack the source, and the Clintons have been doing this since the 90s, claiming every outlandish thing has got to be a Republican conspiracy. That said, though, she's in deep trouble because she's not asking a lot of questions on, or taking a lot of questions on the server, the foundation, etc. And in fact, in the latest Fox News poll, 1/3 of Democrats say don't think she's trustworthy and honest. So she can say what she wants and try to play this off, but she's got some serious problems, and that's why she's taking this interview on CNN with Breonna Keeler.
Jessica, it's almost 20 years old, that vast right-wing conspiracy garbage. She's
but
still
it just
sticking
keeps getting
with it.
better and better.
She's still sticking with it.
Yeah, well, because it's true. And I mean, Ford just said, you know, Hillary, she's in deep trouble. I mean, yeah, so she was 35 points ahead of Bernie Sanders, and now she's 25 points ahead of Bernie Sanders in Iowa. Yeah, he's gaining in New Hampshire, but I think we all know that it's not going to be Bernie Sanders snatching the nomination from Hillary in the end. I mean, yes, the honesty and trustworthy poll numbers are going down. I personally would like it if she would take more questions. I think it would be more interesting. That whole, like, kiddie corral thing this weekend in New Hampshire was a little embarrassing.
You mean when she put the press in
yeah,
ropes?
with the ropes, yeah. I mean, not great. These are adults, and they're trying to do their job, and you should help them to do that, and I think that she would be doing better if they were able to do their job a little bit better. But at the end of the day, I mean, all this talk about her really being in trouble, I just don't buy it.
Well, let me say that. Let me say one thing, Jessica.
Okay.
She's going to win this nomination. There's no question about it. The problem here is how many ways is she going to have to contort herself, because right now she's focused on the general election. And if Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden or someone else gets her all twisted up, she's going to be in real trouble come general election time.
But Ford, I would say actually that, I mean, I just heard today actually that it looks like Joe Biden is going to jump in next month.
Oh, good.
Yeah, well, no, it would be good. I mean, it's interesting. You know, she said in the interview
now, he's
that
not
she
a
welcomes.
racist. By the way, he's not a racist. The man who said that education in Iowa is better than in Washington, D.C. because look how many minorities you have in Iowa, or who said that Barack Obama was the first clean, articulate black ever to run for president. Nothing racist about that because he's a Democrat.
I didn't realize we were talking about that.
Well,
I mean,
why not bring it up? No one else will.
No, but Steve makes a very valid point, and that is that Democrats can get away with saying things that Republicans can't, and when they decide to run for president, the slate is wiped clean, and Republicans don't get that opportunity. But let me say this about Hillary Clinton.
Donald Trump is getting away with it. He's number 2 in the polls, and he said the most offensive racist things.
Killing him. They won't kill
but
Joe
he's
Biden,
still fine.
who was thrown out of one presidential race for plagiarism.
Listen, I am no massive Joe Biden fan. I'm just saying, you want some more competition, you're going to get it. I mean, she was running, you know, as the 3rd Obama term, and that really is Joe Biden if it's going to be anyone. So I'm just saying, we're going to have a little bit, maybe a bigger party by next month. That was all that I was saying. It's not about me endorsing Joe Biden.
Clinton better keep the black vote strong, or this is going to be a long, drawn-out process, even though I do agree with you, the chances of her winning are extremely high.
All right, when we come back, the piece of garbage that murdered the woman in San Francisco who has been convicted of a felony 6 or 7 times and has been in and out of this country as many times as that as well, and what Dianne Feinstein is now saying about it. Don't go away.
Did you shoot Kate Steinle, the lady who was down on Pier 14?
Yes.
You did shoot her?
Mm-hmm.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen, one of Mexico's finest, who has been let in and out of this country multiple times, who's been convicted of felonies multiple times, who has now killed a beautiful young woman in San Francisco. And joining us once again on the panel, Jessica Tarlov, Ford O'Connell. And Jessica, Dianne Feinstein, reportedly today, of all people, said that we may need to address this with federal legislation so that sanctuary cities could no longer turn down ICE by not notifying them, as ICE requested in this case, and just letting these scum back on the streets to kill, that they should be forced at least to notify ICE that they're going to let these scum out so ICE could take them.
Scum. I think you said scum 3 times there.
That's a
but it's
kind
perfectly
word.
fitting for this circumstance. It's a terrible tragedy. I think Dianne Feinstein is absolutely correct. Hillary Clinton, in her interview just now, actually talked about this as well. He was released in April, I believe. They were supposed to be notified. The city declined to. I think it's awful. This was a preventable tragedy. That doesn't mean that we should paint every illegal immigrant with this kind of negative brush, but no dispute here from my end.
And Ford, just go back a couple of weeks or so, and you could find the story that the administration has released hundreds of hardcore criminals onto the streets of the United States of America. And I'm talking about illegals who have been held and aren't held anymore.
Well, you guys are all actually focusing on the wrong thing. How uncommon is the Francisco Sanchez situation? The answer is not that uncommon. We have 100 sanctuary cities across 33 states, and just in California alone in the last 18 months, they've let out 10,000 Francisco Sanchez's. And ICE, by the way, deserves a lot of blame here too, because in 2014 they let out 30,000 felons who had 90,000 felony convictions. This is not just San Francisco, who's really a shame here, but it's also the federal government. And bottom line is both are to blame for this situation, and I'm just surprised more haven't happened. Let me say one last thing about Francisco Sanchez. Do you know what he was doing on that dock? He was there to shoot sea lions. I got a better idea. Let's just give him to PETA because they'll kill him.
All right, that's the only thing funny in this whole thing. Let's move on to Chicago, where, as I said earlier in the show, the little 7-year-old, I don't know how old he was actually.
I think
little
he was
boy.
7.
Okay,
yeah.
Amari Brown was killed. His thug father, there he is, his thug father who's not cooperating with the investigation of the death of his own son, the murder of his own son, because he's a thug gangbanger, and the bullet was meant for him. I'd like to know, Jessica, why Barack Obama can't come out and say, if I had a son, he would have looked like Amari Brown. It's only thugs that he feels for when they're shot legitimately, either by cops or by somebody like Michael Brown or Trayvon, who he said his son would have looked like when he's being shot by a man that he's beating up. Why is it that he sends people to those funerals and not to cops? Why is it that he celebrates and mourns those deaths and not the death of this little boy? What is wrong with Barack Obama, who has no problem with Christians getting slaughtered and rabbis getting hacked to death in a Jerusalem synagogue, but when a thug gets shot by a cop legitimately, it's a tragedy and he sends people to the funeral? Explain that, man.
I mean, we don't have enough time for that, and I'm not going to justify the president's decisions about what he talks about and what he doesn't. Sometimes I think he's right. Sometimes I think he's wrong. Sometimes I think he politicizes. Sometimes I think he doesn't when he should. I mean, we will definitely be talking about the amount of illegal guns that are on the streets of Chicago, which no doubt contributed to the death of this little boy.
I'll tell you what contributed. And Ford,
liberal policies.
Well, yes, letting them out of prison before they're even in prison. That's what the police chief of Chicago has said, and it's not the first time he said it. They arrest these people, they don't go to prison. Or if they go, they're let back out.
Well, look, there's a lot of criminal justice problems in Chicago. It's the murder capital of the country. But let me say one thing about the guns, which is the great liberal, oh my gosh, we need more gun control. Chicago has the strictest gun control in the country. And guess what? 10 people were killed and 65 were wounded over the 4th of July weekend in Chicago. Last year, it was even worse. Chicago's a mess, and no one wants to do anything because Democrats know that if they don't get the black vote, they can't be the mayor of Chicago. And the problem with President Obama is very simple. He's the first African-American president, and he can't separate being a black man and being the president of the United States. And that's why, Steve, he doesn't talk about the thugs, but is willing to talk about everyone else getting killed.
He does talk about the thugs. I mean, when he talks about his, I think it's 10,000 Fathers initiative, he did talk about it. He does address it.
He selectively talks about it.
I mean, he talked about it during Ferguson.
Jessica.
Ford, you're really being unfair
No,
here.
I'm not
saying that the
being
man is
unfair at all.
perfect.
I am
During
not being
Ferguson,
unfair
he
at
talked
all.
about Michael Brown. Jessica, I want to hear from you. Bernie Sanders, who said that women fantasize about being raped by 3 men at the same time when they're having sex. It's now revealed by the New York Times that he said women get cervical cancer because they don't have enough orgasms.
Yeah.
You think this is problematic? You think
I think it's problematic?
You think we'll hear it from any other media outlet? CNN, MSNBC,
Oh yeah, no,
ABC,
I've seen it other places, but it won't turn into anything
Of
for
course not.
sure.
Why not?
Because
It
he's a
won't turn into
Democrat.
There you go. She said it. Because he's a Democrat.
I'm kidding. I mean,
exactly
because
right,
it's
but let me
stupid.
say
It's
one
from
thing about
decades
Bernie
ago.
Sanders and
Listen, I'm
orgasm.
not a Bernie Sanders
right.
fan. I will not be supporting him at the polls. But
Gotta
I mean,
go. Ryan Morrow, national security analyst, is next. Don't go away.